Hey, reporters, welcome back to my channel. Listen, the girls are fighting again. Kail versus Briana round. I don't even know. I originally did not want to cover this story because I'm thinking to myself, Grace, there are just way too many Kail stories lately, not from me, but just in general coming out of her camp. Like, for example, we recently covered the idea that she might be pregnant with twins because she wore that bracelet about mom of seven and whatnot. Then she did this interview where she talked about some DV in her former relationship with Chris Lopez. There's just so much going on there. And I'm like, okay, I've got Kail fatigue, to be honest with you guys. But this story just came out and it's a mess. And I think that a little bit more lighthearted, which I think is what makes it more interesting to me. So basically, what happened is after the interview that Kail did with someone named Bunny something, where she talked about her volatile relationship with Chris Lopez, her former friend Darcy went online and was quite pissed at how Kail was giving what she considered to be a one-sided version of events, sort of playing the victim and not owning up to her own sort of violent tendencies. And so this girl who used to be friends with Kail, but it's online friends. Kail, I hope this taught you a lesson about, these parasocial relationships. I don't know what you were doing, having an online BFF like that at your, reality TV kind of like stature, but I digress. So this girl, she's like, all right, well, why don't I show some of the stuff that you used to do since you want to throw rocks and hide your hands. And let me just say this. So at first, when Darcy leaked the photos of a custom shirt that Kail supposedly made and she wanted to send to Chris, Kail denied it. So let me pull this up. I'm going to try to find the tweet. Briana tweeted about it. And here's a shirt, just for context really quickly before we get into Kail denying having anything to do with this shirt. It says, I love Briana, hashtag Brie Baby. And then it's Briana Dejesus's Twitter handle, which is super lame, right? Considering all these people are like in their 30s, they've all got multiple kids by multiple people to be worried about. And this is what they're doing. So Briana, when she heard about the t-shirt, she tweeted, making a shirt to give to your baby daddy on Father's Day that says, I love Briana is so wild to me. Another inch just grew. And obviously Kail hopped on and said, Briana, don't do this. That S is not from me, which is funny because now on the latest episode of her podcast, Kail is finally fessing up and admitting that she did have something to do with that shirt. Although she is denying being the person who made it, she's claiming that her friend made it sent to Chris. I don't buy that. If you buy that, I do have a bridge to Terabithia to sell you because come on now. I might as well just sit here and say, you know what? My friend makes me do these videos. I have nothing to do with them. I don't know who these people are. I just read from a script, like it's just ridiculous. By the way, this is the latest episode of her Barely Famous podcast. So she was talking with her assistant, Kristen, in this podcast, claiming that her friend made the shirt. You really think that a friend of Kail's is going to take money out of their pocket to make this shirt to send to Chris? Absolutely not. Because obviously it would rock the boat in the co-parenting relationship and stuff. And it's just not something that a true friend would do because it's not a wise thing. In fact, the girl who leaked all this stuff, Darcy, she also advised Kail against sending this shirt to Chris because it was just a mess. So I'm not sure if you can read it all there, but I will get to it. So I do want to tell you guys that by Kail fessing up on the podcast that she sent that photo and that those are her pajamas that you see in that text message exchange about sending Chris the t-shirt, she also unwittingly fessed up to threatening violence against Chris, which I found to be quite interesting because again, this goes to the podcast episode that she was shooting, and it's the root of the issue that her friend Darcy has with her, which is that Kail likes to present like a one-sided view of this relationship with Chris Lopez, which is that, he did a bunch of things against her and this and that, but she doesn't own up to what she did against him. She doesn't own up to hitting him over the child's Lux's hair on the podcast episode. And then she also minimizes her violence against her ex-husband, Javi Marroquin. She goes, well, people, they say I like to play the victim, this, that, and the other, but I own up to all my things. I owned up to shoving Javi once. But she, again, that is not accurate because if you go back to that season where it happened, in the reunion episode, Dr. Drew very clearly asked Kail if she had gotten physical with Javi on other occasions. And Kail says, yes, there have been other occasions plural, where she has put her hands on this man. So this, to me is a little bit disturbing, this kind of like habit of omitting certain things that are quite important. I think if she wants to have a conversation about this, she should try to be as open as possible and as honest as possible about her own history with domestic violence. But I digress. So anyway, here is the text message exchange that she fessed up to basically being real. Bum, 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 bum. Let me put up a picture of Kail's podcast here. So Kail texts Darcy, "Oh, he will be sick. I just want to drop this weight. If he tries to talk to me tomorrow, I promise you I will spit on him." So what she's saying, what she means by he will be sick, it's that Chris is going to like go crazy about the fact that he let her go when she drops weight or whatever, which is a really, really sad way to think, because at the end of the day, if you're bad, you're bad. Okay. And I don't think you should be lusting after someone who is just so horrible towards you. Right. And I don't know. It's just too much emphasis on weight and looking good for someone that, you are talking about being severely abusive and whatnot. Like, just focus on losing weight for health purposes, if that's what you need to do, and for yourself and living longer for your kids. And then like later adding, "I will spit on him." Like that was a really nasty kind of thing to do. And spitting on someone is a form of violence. It is battery after all. And so her friend said, "You're fine without losing the weight or whatever, and you will effing not." So I will say that this girl, although she is leaking stuff about Kail and whatnot, like it seems like in that moment and in that time, like she was advising Kail to make wiser decisions, saying, "Stop, like you're already beautiful, like at the size you're at, like don't spit on him and stuff." And so when this girl tells Kail, like, "Don't spit on him," Kail goes, "Even at my own house?" As if suddenly it's acceptable to spit on someone if it's taking place in your own house. Is this a girl who's supposed to be studying to be a lawyer? Because she's already failed my bar. So Darcy tells her, "You will do what you've never done before and just stick to not talking to him unless you need to. No, Kail, you're not spitting on him anywhere." And so Kail says, "I don't need to say S to that man." And so that was good. And then here is where on the right, do you see that little image of the girl here? On the very top of it, that is highlighted. What does Kail say? "Darcy, I want to punch him and spit on him." And here's the thing. Kail already has a history of being violent in her relationship towards men. We saw her be violent with Javi Marroquin on the show. We saw her admit to being violent on other occasions with him. And then we know that she's been violent with Chris because guess what? She's been arrested for it. She was arrested and charged with offensive touching for allegedly punching him in the face. So when she says, when she threatens violence in writing about this man to her friend, to me, I would believe that they are credible things that she is capable of doing and genuinely wants to do. And that she sends her a video from someone on TikTok who's saying, "You're not crazy for holding your child's father accountable for anything." And then in that third little exchange here, this is what she says. "Chris is about to bring the kids here. He's supposed to have them until 4. Why so early? I didn't ask why, just give me my kids." And so the girl has to talk to her like she's a toddler. No spitting, no hitting. Girl, you're like 30 something with like 5 kids, like grow up. And so Kail was telling her, okay. And Darcy says, "Let me know when you have them." And so Kail talks about how she fought verbally with Chris when he came over with the kids and whatnot. And it's like, wow, this is really great. It sounds like you're proud of that, and the children witnessing that and whatnot is just really unfortunate to hear about, but I digress. So Teen Mom Chatter Next had this on her Instagram stories about the text message exchange. And so in this exchange where we got to see the infamous t-shirt, the "I Love Briana" t-shirt, Kail was telling her friend that she would take a picture of the shirt when she would get up and go downstairs to her like office or whatever to go and retrieve it. And so the friend said, "Knock that off. Like, are you really giving that to him?" And then Kail says yes. And then the friend told her, like, literally, "Don't do it. It's not a good idea. It's not smart," and whatnot. And so voila. So this is, and she also wanted to send something to Briana Dejesus, but we don't know what it is that she wanted to send. Her friend told her not to send anything to her, and also that she shouldn't be giving Chris that t-shirt, the "I Love Briana" t-shirt. And the reason being that because to her, it says that Kail is bothered in a way that she loves him or whatnot, like hurt love. And so Kail was like, are you sure? Like, don't give it to him. Like, I guess it's true what you're saying. And the friend says no. And then apparently this girl, this psycho, had socks made. I wonder what the socks said. It was so weird. And so she was wondering if she could give those as well. So, like I'm saying, it's bad that her friend is ultimately releasing all of this information about her. But I will say that in the moment, she really tried to steer Kail in the right direction in regards to her messy relationship with Chris Lopez. Remember, she told her no spitting, no hitting, don't send that t-shirt, don't send a messy thing to Briana either. Like, it is an awful lot, and it is quite wild. I'm not gonna lie to you guys. Like, it just feels like obsessive and creepy, the kind of obsession with this man and with Briana Dejesus as well. But that's not to say that Chris and Briana are not equally obsessed with Kail. I think all three of them are drama addicts. So when Bri caught wind of this t-shirt gate, she tweeted what we mentioned earlier. Kail, she denied it. She said that stuff is not from me. And then Bri said, Kail, I saw the messages between you and your friend. It's okay. I'm actually flattered, with that heart emoji, which, that had to have killed Kail. Like, she must have been just like cringing on the inside, having to fess up to this on her podcast. And like the fact that she came up with this like lame excuse that it was my friend who did it. Like, sure, Jan. Absolutely sure, Jan. No one believes that for a second. Actually, I'm sure there are a couple of people who believe it, but I think that the majority of people have the discernment to know that that is not the truth. Kail was very, very much obsessed with Chris Lopez. I believe she still is very much obsessed with Chris Lopez, which is normal, right? It's a toxic relationship, and those sorts of bonds are incredibly, incredibly difficult to break free from. But I wish she would just own up to it, right? And here's the thing. She's acting like the friend just like popped up with it, but she sent proof of the like design. So when you design something that's going to be printed on demand, you are online and you're kind of like designing where it'll go on the shirt. Do you want it to be on the top right, top left? Do you want it to be center top, center bottom? Do you want it to be on the back? Like all sorts of stuff. So Kail had that, which means that she was involved in the design process of this. And she's like, I need to show it to you. Here's what it looks like. So she ordered it. Like, there's no way that her friend just made it. And then she was like, oh, this is a fun thing. Maybe I should send it to him. No, Kail, you were involved in it. And it's already proven in this thing. She said, my friend made it. She brought it over, but I came back upstairs already. But I do believe that she was involved in like the font, the this, the that, making sure to add the handles and stuff. Like, it's a lot. And so it's kind of just like how she unknowingly here admitted that she was threatening to spit on and punch her baby daddy, being violent with him. And then here on the other side, she again threatens to spit on that man. And then she talks about how, he comes with the kids and then they get to fighting. And I wonder, is this fighting happening in front of these poor children? We already know from Teen Mom 2 that there have been fights that have taken place in front of Isaac that have caused him to cry. And when he cried, what did Kail do? She called his father to come claim him because she wasn't going to deal with them tears. She had some D to attend to, So I do wonder what that sort of thing kind of plays out like in their household, because it just sounds like an absolute mess. It sounds very emotionally draining for everybody involved. So I do want to show you guys the Instagram post from her former friend Darcy, before Darcy went public with all of these photos and text messages. So Darcy said, it's hilarious to me how a mother effer can go on a podcast and tell half-truths and then get mad when exposed with some corny ass she did and lie about it. I don't need to lie for nothing. Calling me a liar was a big effing mistake. You want to play? Let's play. And then that's when all the receipts came out. I know some people had been doubting Darcy, like, okay, this might have just been like a fan online, this, that, or the other. But Kail confirmed on the podcast that this was a friend of hers, and that now she's learned her lesson about sending like photos or anything in text message, that it will come back to haunt you. And so, yeah, honestly, it's just very, I want to say disturbing behavior, just like it's obsessive behavior. It's just like creepy behavior. It's just move on at this point kind of behavior. She does say that this happened a couple years ago. It was around the time of the lawsuit. So I do understand with all of the heightened emotions surrounding that. So I will give her a pass at the very least. But yeah, I don't know. I want to know what you guys think about this entire situation, about the t-shirt being made, do you think that Kail instructed her friend to put it together so that she could send it to Chris? Are you also curious about what the sock said and what she wanted to send to Briana? And how do you feel about the text message exchange where she threatened violence against Chris Lopez, or how the podcast went down with Bunny where she talked about the DV in her relationship with Chris Lopez? Do you think that do you feel the same way that her former friend feels, in that she's only giving one side to the story and not talking about, her own DV that she committed against Chris and other people as well? Let me know all of your thoughts and opinions. It is messy. There's a lot going on in here. I know I don't even have a proper opinion on all of this, except that all three of these people are a lot. They're a lot to handle. They all kind of thrive off of each other in a very negative way, and it's disappointing at the end of the day, but I digress. Let me know what you think, okay? And as usual, we'll chat. That's all for now. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.